Good morning. Will the Committee on Infrastructure, Transportation, and Technology please come to order? It is February 4, 2026 at 9:03 a.m. I would like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Okimoto and Committee Members Dos Santos, Tam, and Wire. And we also have Councilmember Tupola, who's present online. And pursuant to Section 92-3.7, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda through two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will then be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution, HRS Section 1-13, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I'll identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your phone number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips: video conference from a quiet location, if possible. If you're also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HR Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with HR Section 90-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we re-establish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. And as a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. And also, for Councilmember Tupola, may I please ask that you identify each person who is with you at your location.
Hi, aloha chair and committee members. I'm here alone.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, next we will move on to agenda item number 1. It is Bill 12-2026, which requires certain information relating to sewers, drainage, and cesspools to be made available on a publicly accessible website utilizing the City's Geographic Information System, or GIS. And this was introduced by our committee member, Councilmember Tupola, as well as Chair Waters, who welcome to the chambers now. But I do want to allow for the introducers of the bill to take this up for Bill 12. So I don't know if either Council Chair Waters or Councilmember Tupola want to discuss Bill 12-2026 first. Okay,
I'll defer to Chair Waters. I can defer to Chair Waters. Go ahead.
Okay, Chair Waters.
Thank you. I was about to defer to you, but basically, it would help people, both in the commercial realm and residential, to know what's available as far as infrastructure is concerned so that they can plan accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tupola, any further discussion?
No, I think Chair Waters and I are just interested in transparency. It's something that we have to answer to during budget season and, of course, when people get charged. So I do believe that, especially with the current conversations we've had about infrastructure, that it is going to be a good measure that helps us to proactively get in front of that and then hopefully, increase even people's interest in doing housing with us, because there's always concern about whether or not there is capacity. So thank you very much, Chair Waters, for allowing me to sponsor this with you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we do have the administration, either Rando Wakamoto from Stormwater Quality, the Stormwater Quality Administrator from the Department of Facility Maintenance, or we have the Department of Environmental Services Director, Dr. Roger Babcock.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Waters, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okamoto, committee members, Roger Babcock, Director, Department of Environmental Services, and we'll let Randall introduce himself too when he comes up. I guess we're happy to answer any questions about this about the bill, and we could offer comments, I guess, as requested.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the administration? Councilmember DeSantis Tam.
Thank you, Chair. Director, is this information not already available at the City Council's Open Data ArcGIS website? I'm literally looking at it right now. Is this not publicly available already?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Council Member. Some of the information is readily available on the existing website. So city's existing GIS website has lots of information segregated by different types. So there is a sewer GIS site, there is a storm sewer web GIS interface, which has information, very detailed information about every pipe in the system, for example, and pump stations and treatment plants. It doesn't include flow rates or anything like that. It's basically the infrastructure. Other types of information are available other places on the city website, but not all of the information that is on this list is available in one place or anything like that. There is, we have permits that require us to analyze lots of samples and gather lots of data on a continuous basis as part of our DOH and EPA permits to operate our facilities and our systems. And so that information is generally required to be submitted through official portals to those entities on a monthly basis. And so that information essentially becomes public information, those reports at that time. We don't routinely post those reports anywhere. They are, as I mentioned, though, available to anyone upon request who might be interested in them. The folks who are interested in that information generally would be engineers or consultants preparing to do some sort of a project for us. And so they get that information readily from us. The information on, for example, like sewer spills, which is on the list. So we do public press, we do press releases whenever there's a reportable spill. So again, what that kind of information is required to be disseminated by our permits, by the Department of Health. So again, I think between those two things, there's other information requested, including planned maintenance, repair, replacement, and installation work. When there are projects that are upcoming, a lot of times they're presented to council, to committee. They also are always presented at neighborhood board meetings in the communities that are affected. And so the council member of the district knows and the neighborhood boards know. So there generally would be a presentation and a timeline and address concerns that people might have with noise or traffic disruptions associated with projects. That's in terms of when projects are actually happening. Upcoming projects, and usually we try to get that information out pretty far in advance of when the project's going to happen. And then updates during work, which sometimes can take years, are disseminated through that as well. For upcoming projects, things that are planned, those would be in our 6-year CIP project spreadsheets, which are available and approved by council each year, and then available in the online along with all the other sort of budget information for the city. So anyway, the information, the kind of information is available, I guess, upon request at this time, but not sort of all cobbled together at one location where I guess someone who would perhaps have some interest in the information could get it in a very quick way. So yeah.
Okay, following up on that, since all of this information, almost all of it, is available across about 6 or 7 different data sets. I mean, I'm looking at the stormwater structure set, which has about 17,000 different pipes and the flow rates and diameter and what it's made out of and its location, just as an example. Because all this information is publicly available, does your department have the resources internally to create such a database here? Are we going to have to rely on the city's chief data officer to do this? Is this something we're gonna have to farm out? And if so, do we have a sense of how much it's gonna cost to do this exercise of creating a website to cobble together publicly available information that's already on a different website?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. I think I'll have to get back to you on what that might cost. There'd definitely be some effort that we would either have to do or get assistance doing. That applies to the ENV data. I think the situation is a little bit different for stormwater, for DFM. I think some of the information is not as readily available. But for our case, it definitely would be an effort that that would have to be undertaken. So I'll have to get back to you in terms of that.
Okay, I think that information would be very important as this bill moves forward, because if we're going to be talking about transparency, we should also be transparent about the costs.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Tapola.
Thanks so much. Aloha, Director. Who did you say you have with you? Is it Tyler or Randall? Or I think you said someone's with you.
Yeah, Randall is here.
Okay, I don't have questions for Randall, but hello, Randall, everyone. He's awesome. He is the guy who knows all the things stormwater. I guess, Director, I know that some of this is EMV related, but actually DFM kind of maintains a lot of these things. And based upon what was asked earlier, because there's only a few pieces that are maybe not together with what was requested in the bill, I would love to work with you and maybe DFM and what we could do to make it more comprehensive. I'll give you an example. And again, I didn't think that it would be directly you responding to it, because actually DFM are the people that I work regularly with regarding many of these things, not necessarily the infrastructure, but the upkeep of it, when they cleaned it, when it was last done. I guess my concern is I do think maybe between now and whenever we can get something implemented where it's easily seen, like you guys did a great job with opala.org, right? Now everything landfill related, you find it all in one place, it's easy, and I think it's, even for us as council members, so useful to be able to find all the documents in one place. I guess my concern is that Tyler Sugihara is getting ready to retire, and I'm very concerned that he has so much historical knowledge of the city, of like drainage and pipes and sewage, that I think us making sure that there is a place for all of this to be found would be a good idea. I'll give you a couple examples. I took him out to Kea'au, and there was actually a culvert that it was round, and as the drain came through it, it spurted out like almost like a circle, and we couldn't figure out why or who did it, but the whole thing was kind of corroded. It was flooding the houses, so the only person that really knew was him. So he kind of backstoried us on why it happened, where it was coming from. So I guess with that in mind, I wanted to just ask if there is a way we could work together to just kind of make it like the most like pertinent things you think that like residents would want to know, but I do think we're going to have to find ways to start to store this historical knowledge, because there are definitely guys in the city that once they retire, I don't know where the knowledge is going to go. I mean, I'll put it out there. Tai Fukumitsu is one of them. Like, they just know these things off the top of their head. I think it's great, but we need to preserve it. So would that be something you'd be willing to work with me on?
Hi, morning. Randall Wakamoto with the Program Administrator for our Stormwater Quality Division, Department of Facility Maintenance. So thank you very much, Councilmember Topola, for that question. And we can definitely work with you. That's actually something we're hoping to start putting a lot of that information, as Director Dr. Babcock mentioned. A lot of that information is not readily available at this moment. What we're doing right now is we're intending to start moving forward with developing a stormwater master plan. And that's going to be essentially looking at a lot of those issues that you pointed out, like for the capacity, the flows, and being able to update that information, because a lot of the information that's currently available, it's really outdated, and it hasn't been fully updated and verified in terms of a lot of the drainage capacity, flooding issues that you're mentioning. And so we'd like to be able to start updating that information, doing more of that in-depth modeling to be able to demonstrate where those problem areas do lie. And so it is going to be a big component of that master plan to have a stakeholder engagement process and making that information, some of that information obviously more readily accessible and available, whether through a website or through other means. I know our department does put out press releases whenever there's scheduled maintenance of our stream mount openings, as well as stream maintenance repairs or stream maintenance activities. So those are usually done through press releases, but as far as putting it into a consolidated website, that information hasn't quite transpired yet. So it's all in sort of singular events that we're putting that information out to the public.
Okay, Randall, I'll reach out to you. We'll work together because, you know, Tyler's been great, but there's also other issues, right, with Ulehava Stream where I think I need it chronologically, historically, because we constantly get accused of not doing it when we've really been doing it, but we just need to make it where it's readily available. So, you know, we don't want to make this bill anything more than what it needs to be, and I think what we can do. And I think since you guys are moving that way already, I think this will be a great partnership, and I'll just make sure that it's kind of lined up with you guys' timelines and with the specs that you're looking for. And then I'll share with you other stories people have told where I can't do it without that information. But of course, you know, I can reach out to you guys as staff, but I think it'd be easier if we had it on a website rather than trying to call and figure out who remembers what happened here at what date and what year, who did this funding, why is this dug this way. But thank you for all your expertise. I really appreciate all that you do, Randall. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. And we'll make sure that we tie down Tyler. And so making sure that he does not leave. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to tie him down and interview him and get all that information out of his brain. And so making sure that we have all that institutional knowledge so that we can pass that on to the next, right?
Mahalo.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola. Mr. Wakamoto, in addition to that, I was also thinking maybe more than 10 years ago when on Waipa Lane near Palama Settlement, we had, I want to say 2 or 3 homes, or not homes, like homes that were being rebuilt there. And we were looking at a lateral, sorry, no, I'm going into specifics, but this conversation is jogging my memory, yeah. And we weren't sure. It was between the people who were developing or redeveloping that area and the city, whether it be ENV and DFM, but I think DFM was mainly responding and helping us, trying to look at what lateral was closest to that Waipa Lane and Pua Lane properties. And so it was interesting because on the GIS map, which of course I was able to look at, we couldn't see, I guess, one that was it DFM or ENV was able to see at the same time, and the construction of the driveway kind of had to stop midway, and so I had to go out there with the last administration and just really look at like a big, like half of a driveway that was like kind of deep because of the back and forth that was going on with ENV. Not ENV. Sorry, I looked at Director Babcock, but with us and what the development that was happening by Palama Settlement. So I guess since then, of course, that's like more than a decade ago. Do you know if all the information, whether it be from DFM or ENV, has been provided to those updating the GIS so that it is kind of better updated, that whether it be someone redeveloping something by Palama Settlement like that or something else is able to at least know what is going to be available for them infrastructure-wise?
So I can speak on behalf of DFM. So for the storm drainage system, we do update the information on a regular basis. There was a point in time where there was just a singular person that was updating all of that information. However, that person has since retired a few years ago. We're now in the process of working with the Department of Planning and Permitting, and essentially within our Department of Facility Maintenance is being able to now identify how that information does get updated. So a lot of it is based on information that gets passed on to our department or our division, in which case we do have GIS analysts that go in and make those kind of edits and updates. However, if that information doesn't come over, then of course we're not aware of that. And so a lot of it is all kind of like either complaint driven or when they're out in the field, like you mentioned in that situation, Councilmember, that when we're seeing that there's discrepancies, is sort of documenting that issue and noting that there are some inconsistencies, in which case then our GIS analysts will go in, make those adjustments based on what the field observations are. And so from that point, then now we're relaying that information to the Department of Planning and Permitting so they can post it to the public interface of that GIS website.
Okay, I guess the latter part of that question of mine then probably should be posed to the Department of Planning and Permitting then.
Yeah, currently the Department of Planning and Permitting through their Hollis group was responsible for updating that GIS system as it relates to stormwater. But like I mentioned, that person who was dedicated to doing all that work has since retired. So I think right now we're currently working with the Department of Planning and Permitting, and I think our intent is to transfer that responsibilities to our Department of Facility Maintenance, since we have dedicated GIS folks who can make those kind of adjustments and changes. But it's still kind of right now we're kind of still working through that process.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we can ask the Department of Planning and Permitting after, but I do want to allow for, since you both are up here, if there are any other questions for both DFM and ENV. Okay, we have Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And I think the discussion has been really helpful. You know, and looking at the testimony, I know there's value in looking at addressing some of these questions. You know, we saw folks doing architecture of water resource management. There's testimony today that brought up some suggestions for maybe tweaks. And so I was just curious if the department was comfortable with this as it is, if it's an easy lift. Are there any small language changes that the department's put forward, or is it all good to go? Because I just haven't really heard that yet.
Yeah, maybe I'll go first. I did want to just add a little bit about the GIS question from Chair Cordero. ENV does have three people in our GIS group as part of ENV. And the GIS, the information that goes in GIS is updated by our people whenever there is a set of plans as where something is modified. So we do know, I think with fairly great precision, exactly where all of the city assets are. Chair Cordero's question was really about a lateral, which is on private property. So on our GIS maps, the information about laterals is approximate. We don't know for sure. Usually it has to be ground truthed in person. And there are ways, we have simple ways to do that. We have cameras that we stick inside the pipes, and they have sensors, and we can do toning and figure out exactly where pipes are on private property if necessary. So those techniques and technology all exist, and we have those. With respect to specific changes, Councilmember Wire, we'll have to get back to you on that and think about any specific wording changes that we would recommend. But I do think there's a few little things that could be tweaked to make it a little less of a challenge for us.
Mahalo, I appreciate that. I don't know if, go ahead if you have additional input.
Sure. Maybe I could just add to that as well. And so for some of this information, like the location, the structures, that's something that's already readily available to the public. I think there's just some concerns in terms of like when you talk about the capacity and the flows, things like that, it may not be accurately represented in the current data, and it's mostly largely incomplete, and it hasn't been really verified. And a lot of the data that it's based on is when the developments came into place, which would have happened in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and it has been largely not updated to reflect the current situation. So by making that data available, it may give some indications that it's not accurate because there's been new developments, and so the flows and the capacities are probably not something that is reliable because there's more runoff being generated because of urbanization and things like that. So there's just some concerns about the liability and posting that kind of information to the public. Obviously, it's all a matter of different conditions, rainfall conditions, and things like that that generate that runoff. But also, we are working on other initiatives. It's just that it's more the timing of when it might occur. So for instance, I know the bill talks about the annual amount of rainfall that's captured. That information is not currently available. We are working on certain measures. We have this, we're working on this program called Follow the Drop, where it can actually measure the amount of water that's being captured on different properties, whether residential, commercial, or any public spaces. The problem is that it's really site-specific, and it's a matter of being able to get the necessary funding and being able to put the time and effort to populate all that information. So we have sort of these pilot studies that we've done. One in particular, we've worked with a group in East Honolulu, Malama Mauna Lua, where they've done that type of analysis for the Ainahaina watershed. We've also worked with the Hawaii Green Growth area where they're doing one for the Alawai watershed. So that's a larger area, obviously, but we're able to simulate what that would look like if people were to capture that water, store it, and seeing how much water is being actually stored and captured. But it's all from a simulation standpoint, not actual where somebody is actually doing that, because it's just kind of thinking, if you were to do this, this is how much the water, annual amount of water that would be actually captured, right? So some of this information it's important, and we would like to see how we can make it more accessible. It's just that we're still in the early stages of developing it, and it's all based on funding and resources.
Okay. Yeah, just to wrap up, I mean, do you think, because I know ENV's, Dr. Babcock said they'd provide some follow-up. Do you think during the progression of the bill, that'll be enough time to kind of formulate, maybe in writing? Of course, we don't know exactly where the data is going to land in terms of what's coming out, but if there's any suggestions or small adjustments that need to be made or should be talked through, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's where we'd like to work with the council to see where we can, and just being transparent and sort of managing expectations in terms of how that information does get disseminated and when it gets disseminated. And it may not be something that could be available. Let's say if we were to create a dedicated website, it may be only a portion of this information, and as time goes on, we're able to add that information depending on the funding and resources that's available.
Okay, no, very much appreciate that, because I think ultimately we want to get all the information to the community that they need without duplicating efforts, without overburdening or overregulating, staff, and of course doing it in a cost-effective way. So hopefully the discussion will provide more info on that.
Yeah, agree. And the same thing would apply for like the portion that of identifying anything in terms of projects or planned maintenance activities. That may be a heavier lift to be able to capture all that information, putting that into some kind of a centralized system, because it's all in different areas that you would have to get it, and then a lot of it may not be in actual a consolidated or a centralized database. It's sort of, a lot of it is still being done through sort of hard copy reports that's being transmitted, documented, and then passed on to the crews to be able to follow up. So it might be a heavy lift to be able to then transfer that into a more digital format.
Okay, appreciate that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Wire. Okay, members, any other questions for the two departments before us? Okay, I think that Mr. Wakamoto actually answered a bit of the questions relating to the GIS, that language that's shared between the departments and from DPP, so I don't think I need to call up the next department. So, unless, no, okay, all right. So we're gonna go to testimony. We will now proceed with in-person, oh no, sorry, remote testimony. We don't have any registered remote testifiers, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify? Okay, I see Donald Sakamoto's hand raised. Donald? Okay, I think that's for item number 2, actually. All right, is there anyone online who else online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify?
Councilmember, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, yes. Hi, Donald. Are you testifying on item number 1?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to get the unmute. Yes, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto, members of the Transportation Infrastructure Subcommittee Committee. Donald Sakumo, longtime member of Kaneohe Neighborhood Board, actually a large member. As a disabled blind person, I just want to make sure that the websites are accessible for people like myself who need to know what's the charts and maps and everything else. So I know there's a Department of Justice mandate by April 24th, 2026 that all websites for county and state have to be accessible for people like myself and others. So I just hope that the website will be accessible for myself and others who want to review the documents who are blind or sight impaired. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sakamoto. I really appreciate that reminder and that note. Next, do we have any in-person testimony? Any other testifiers? Okay, seeing none. Members, we are in discussion. I know that Councilmember Tupola mentioned that she is going to be working with the department for a committee draft for next committee. So Councilmember Tupola, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Chair. Yes, thank you very much, Randall and Director Babcock, for being here. I have my office pulled together a meeting. I assured both the introducer, Chair Waters, and the chair of this committee that I'll work with you guys. We want to make sure that it's within your timeline if we need to kind of draw it out so that it matches up with you guys' timelines and that we're putting things on the website that doesn't disadvantage people, but actually just gives that transparency and holds a lot of the historical knowledge. That's kind of the goal we're going for. So I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, the chair recommends that Bill 12-2026 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing, and I hope to see that committee draft when it comes back to committee, hopefully, if it does. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to item number 2, for we have Bill 60-2025 CD1, which addresses provisions related to the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation. Members, we have posted to the agenda a proposed CD2 version, OCS 2026-005/1/7/2026 1058 AM of the bill submitted by myself for your information. A summary of the amendments are listed on the agenda. We do have with us the Deputy Director of the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation, Michael O'Keefe, if you would like to provide any comment, and also note the receipt of testimony in support by DPP.
Good morning, Committee Chair, Council members. Mike O'Keefe, Deputy Director at HART. Thank you for hearing this bill and for the opportunity to speak. HART is definitely in support of Bill 60 and the CD2 in particular. The CD2 and the key language in there, I'll just read it real quickly. The council approves all extensions to the minimum operable segment that adhere to the locally preferred alternative. Just as a refresher, the minimum operable segment is currently East Kapolei through Ala Moana Center. The locally preferred alternative is West Kapolei all the way through UH Manoa with a spur to Waikiki. So Bill 60 CD2 authorizes HART to build extensions to the minimum operable segment. It's just the authorization. It's funding that those extensions are not currently funded yet, but we're looking forward to discussing that further. But in short, we appreciate the council's trust in HART to take on this additional responsibility, and we're ready to go. So thank you.
Mahalo. And mahalo to you and your team, as well as Corporation Council, for the lengthy discussions. Thank you. Next, members, do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none, members will go to testimony. We don't have any registered remote testimony, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify? We have Donald Sakamoto, I think it's 201. I'll give you some time to unmute.
Okay, Council Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, okay. Donald Sakamoto again for the record. Yes, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I'd like to just comment on the Bill 60. It's wonderful to have the rail. I went to the first two segments of the grand opening and whatnot. I like it, but the thing is, when you construct the rail, like the Dillingham project right now with the accessibility of the sidewalks and crosswalks and whatnot, you need to make sure that HART is basically addressing the current concerns of the ADA. It's been 35 years now. We celebrated in July last year. So I just urged HART and the contractors that they deal with to make it more accessible for us people who are disabled like myself and Kapuna, and even regular people, just to walk there and to access the area while the construction is going on. That's my concern, is please Kokua, and please make sure HART does that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakamoto, and I appreciate you highlighting that. Next, we don't have any other in online testimony, but is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we will now go to in-person testimony. We have registered in-person testifiers. We have Panemea Tonga from the Operating Engineers Local 3, followed by Mark Anthony Clemente from the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Panemea Tonga, Deputy Political Director for Operating Engineers Local 3. I believe you have my boss's written testimony in support of Bill 60. I just wanted to be here in person to express our union's support for Bill 60 CD2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mark Anthony Clemente.
Hello, Chair, members. Mark Anthony Clemente on behalf of the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters, Political Director. Just expressing my support for Bill 60 CD2. Here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. All right. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none. Okay, thank you very much. Members, we are back in discussion. Okay, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Chair, I appreciate your work on this. I know it's been several months, and what the final product is in terms of the proposed CD2 is very short and brief, and yet it's very elegant in that way. And I think it really expresses the council's support for this project, making sure that we have transportation equity around the island, and that is only going to happen if we're able to fully develop the locally preferred alternative. And so this bill is a really important step in that direction. And I look forward to continuing to work with HART and DTS to make sure that, again, we are able to realize that goal of transportation equity around the island.
Thank you. Members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Members, the chair recommends that Bill 60, 2025 CD1 be amended to the posted CD2 OCS 2026-005/1/7/2026 10:58 a.m. Any discussion, any objections, any reservations? The bill has been amended to a CD2. The chair then recommends that Bill 60, 2025 CD2 be reported out for third reading. Any discussion? Any discussion? Oh, we have Councilmember Wire.
Thank you. I just had a quick question for Hart.
Okay, we have Deputy Director Michael O'Keefe.
Thank you. And really appreciate, as mentioned, the discussion on this, the moving forward. I'm just curious if you could walk us through, just maybe concisely, with the new review that the board's put out on extensions, and then we're also looking at what the charter allows in terms of the locally preferred alternative. If we're wanting to assess pathways to making rail more accessible to Central Oahu or extending in that direction, what exactly would the process entail? Because I know it's a big lift.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councilmember Wire. So a couple of things that are being looked at right now in terms of extensions. So we are, our organization is working closely with OMPO on looking at possible extensions westward. The exact route and mode of that transportation option is what's being studied, so that's still being determined. I think folks are aware that a couple of months ago we issued a change order to Tudor Perini, our contractor who's building segment 3 from Middle Street to the current terminus, the current planned terminus at Civic Center Station. We issued a change order for them to begin engineering from Kaka'ako to Ala Moana Center, that last mile plus 2 stations. And so for Central Oahu, to get to your question, a couple of things. We're working real closely with our sister agency, DTS, at the city. They're developing park and ride options up towards Mililani, Wahiwa. We have a couple of projects at the Pearl Highlands Waiava station to increase interconnectivity with the bus system that will be bringing people down from that area. Mainly, we have a project that's going to go out to bid for construction soon, an H2 access ramp that will be a kind of a bus-only dedicated off-ramp from H2 right into the Pearl Highlands Waiava station. So that increases ease into and out of that station. But yeah, as far as an actual rail extension up to Wahiwa and Mililani, nothing concrete in the plans yet. We're more so focusing on the entire kind of one transit system. How can we leverage the bus system, park and rides further up at that point to get people to the existing alignment down there and get them on the rail system. But nothing is off the table. We're always open to ideas and options.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. I know folks would definitely very much appreciate the additional park and ride options. And of course, that ramp, when it's done, I think will allow for better and quicker direct access to rural Oahu North Shore area in terms of getting the bus directly down there to Skyline. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Wire. Next, I forgot what I was saying. Okay, so the chair then recommends that Bill 60, 2025 CD2 be reported out for third reading. Any discussion again? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to the last item on the agenda as it relates to our rail system, Skyline. We are now moving to informational briefing. Excuse me. It's the update by the Department of Transportation Services on multimodal transit ridership. And we have, during the presentation, the Director of Rapid Transit. Congratulations to John Nauchi for that new title and new leadership. Yay, John. And he'll be doing the presentation, and the presentation is available online as Departmental Communication 60 2026. So if you're online, you can go to Departmental Communication 60 2026. Yeah. And it should be up on the screen. Awesome. Okay. Next, go ahead. Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, John.
Aloha, good morning, committee chair and members of the committee. John Nouchi, new Director of Transit for DTS. In this role, I will be overseeing different modes of multimodal transit, but I think more importantly, we do have a great candidate that is now, not a candidate, but we have a new deputy of our department, and that's Hong Lee. He's sitting right here behind me. So I'd just like to introduce him. Go ahead and stand up and come up here, Hong, then they can see you on TV and they know what your face looks like. So Hong brings a wealth of knowledge. He's actually been in DTS longer than I have, and he's been churning away at the projects that really do bridge the gap between our Skyline system, our bus system, and our walkable communities that we're trying to develop. So Hong has been instrumental in not only securing money for, but implementing projects such as our Kekalike Mall and the multi-use paths under the Guideway leading to and from the UH West Oahu Station, the East Kapolei Station, and Kamakana Ali'i. And so he understands that, that relationship of how everything needs to work together to bring access to the community. And I think especially for Councilmember Wire and Okimoto, he worked with the State Department of Transportation to implement that. It sounds very small, but a U-turn for our buses that really did activate the Central Oahu Corridor and give them direct access to Skyline where there had been none. So for that, I think Director Morton and I see that this is kind of a new era for DTS in a way, because we have a pretty, we think, we have a pretty awesome three-legged stool in terms of transportation leadership. You know, we have director who is a great policy leader. We have Hong Lee, Dr. Hong Lee, who is a awesome engineer, and I have transit. I'm at the helm of transit, so I think together we have the capacity to turn out a lot more things and to address a lot more of the issues for our community. So yeah, just wanted to acknowledge Hong. Do you want to say anything real quick?
Yes, as John mentioned, DTS is really at an exciting time. We have new leadership. And for myself, I'm a licensed engineer. I have 28 years experience combining the public sector and private sector. I look forward to working with you on an important transportation issue. But by the way, for the record, my name is Hong Lee. I'm with DTS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director of, Director of Transit and Deputy Director of DTS. And Hong, you have been amazing ever since when I was staff, being so helpful throughout the past 14 years now. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to the presentation. Are you going to John Campo, who's going to do them, or you? Okay, no.
No, I'll take care of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it. Good. Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead, Director Nochi.
There we go. So in my new role, I will be overseeing our multimodal transit system, and we have currently 4 modes in our transit system right now. That's the bus, as we all know. Handy Van is a great partner to the bus, goes to the places where the bus cannot go, and sometimes where our passengers cannot get to the bus. We have our Skyline Rail, and we have our Beaky Bike Share. Oh, can you help me with the next? Okay, I'm sorry. So today we will be addressing the bus and Skyline together. So I wanted to give everybody a quick summary. I think everybody in here knows this, but wanted to do a quick summary of the bus. We operate 480 buses on our island on 117 routes. I think that's a big number that a lot of people are not aware of. We operate 365 days a year. 2 of our routes operate 24/7. Think about that, they never stop, and that's the Route 2 between Kalihi and Waikiki, and Route 40 all the way between Makaha and Ala Moana. Never stops rolling. Each day, all of these buses on these 117 routes operate 4,723 hours of weekday service, and also big numbers. Each weekday, so right now we're about, maybe a third of our way through the day, we operate 64,000 miles traveling on our roadways. And that's huge because that's over twice going around the earth twice at the equator. So we operate a lot of service. And for that, we carry a little shy of 130,000 passengers. What I wanted to do was kind of lay out, just for some perspective, these are our top 10 highest ridership routes on the bus. And probably no surprise to those that use them. But routes 1 and 2 always kind of duke it out for first place. Route 13 always comes in a solid third place. And what you'll see here is that these are all pretty obviously trunk routes that service, either very dense corridors or the busiest parts of our city. But if you look at the ridership, they rank between 11,000 and 3,700 in that top 10. But probably more importantly, these top 10 routes account for over half the ridership on our system. So the other 107 routes take care of less than half of the ridership that we post daily. And if you look at that, we also do have our new W line and our A line also on this list, which connect directly to Skyline. And so I'm gonna go on to our Skyline facts. Right now we have 12 trains in our custody. We require 7 trains to operate the current level of service on Skyline with every 10 minutes between East Kapolei and the Kahauiki Kalihi Transit Center station. And that's on 16 miles of guideway, serving 13 stations in 13 communities. And we're very happy to find that our ridership is increasing to serve a little bit shy of 12,000 people a day. The top 5 busiest stations, we saw this again, the first top 3 stations were kind of duking themselves out, but I think we've landed this month on the Ahua Lagoon Drive station. So kind of bookmark that. I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. But of course, our Kahauiki Kalihi Transit Center station is always busy, as is the airport as a really cool center where everybody meets, the visitors, our residents who are traveling, and also our residents who are working at the airport. You see a great mix of people coming through the fare gates there, like whether it be pilots, flight attendants, people who throw bags, people who work customer service, and just the people who are traveling somewhere. It's really cool for me to see as a transportation guy. But of course, we have the Ho'ai Westlock Station, which is at the site of the former Don Quixote in Waipahu, also pulling in a lot of ridership. And notably on this list, Keone'ai, UH West Oahu, it's a little bit less in terms of ridership, but that is the busiest, most utilized park and ride we have in the system. So when you combine the two together, what is very significant about our growing ridership on Skyline right now is that, this is the top 10 list of the busiest routes that we have in the bus system. So I'll go to the next. When you look at Skyline, this was the first time that Skyline has landed at the top of the list. And so Skyline is at the top of the list of if you look at Skyline as just a route, it does rank first for the very first time in our system's history. And we expect that to grow. So what that does do is it shows the importance of where Skyline lands and how it's going to be a part of our integrated multimodal system. Okay, so I can't see the numbers here posted, but the point I wanted to make is if Skyline accounts for about, let's say about 11,000 or so daily riders, and our A, U, and W lines that connect to Skyline account for about 9,500. Thank you, Chair. 9,500 daily riders. So what's interesting there is all the rapid lines that connect to Skyline are almost carrying the same amount of people as Skyline. So when you put that together, the combined Skyline ridership and the connecting rapid bus ridership equal about 20,000 riders a day. And most notably, at that point, that 20,000 riders is 15% of our daily system ridership. So for 4 lines in our system, it is carrying a hefty load in our whole multimodal system. Go on. So as you can see, we were pretty much in that, prior to second opening, we were in about 3,000 to 3,500 passengers a day with our segment 1 on Skyline. And that stayed kind of the same until August of 25, where we started to notice a little bit of uptick. And we attribute that to school starting up again and our UH West Oahu and Leeward Community College students taking on new ways to get to their school. And that's why you see in August it upticked a little bit. In September, it also upticked further. So it's starting to show that the mode is taking on that reliability that Skyline can offer, being always on time. It was very attractive to a growing crowd. October of 25 there, half the month was segment 1 and half the month was segment 2 there. But we did see an average of about 7,500 people using both the old service and the new service. And then if you see in November, it jumped to about 10,000. And in December, for December and January, it grew incrementally. And actually in transit, to pick up 1,000 or 2,000 riders in a short amount of time is not generally something that happens. So we are looking at an upwards trend of Skyline. And when I ride it fairly regularly, you do see a different a different crowd. When I say different crowd, you see more crowding at the stations. And I think one of the most gratifying things for me to see is going through the transfer gates at Lagoon Drive Station, going up to the platform, and then seeing everybody lined up with like a wealth of carts and bikes and scooters and one wheels and all that kind of thing. And you get to meet a whole bunch of different people who have adopted this way of getting around. So understanding that ridership, we have a good product out there. And a lot of people have recognized that. And word of mouth is almost like a good restaurant where you find out good things and it helps people. More people will get on because more people know about it. But we understand that we do have to go into the community a lot harder to find more people who might benefit from the convenience that Skyline does bring. So we've gone into the community at a lot of seasonal events, a lot of cultural events. We've done makeke and food events, and even keiki literacy. Mahalo to committee chair for your Read Aloud event. We had a lot of people had a good time at that one. They still ask us when we're doing the next one. But more importantly, we supported things like Mega Bone. We supported things like the Hawaii Bowl. And we're trying to be more of a presence as resources in the community to do food distribution with Food Bank and with our Office of Economic Revitalization. We also did seasonal things like Halloween, Christmas, and New Year's. And we will follow up to do more programs for small and large-scale employers. Educational outreach, we're working with the DOE on providing fares for our keiki. We have an ongoing program in DTS called Honolulu Connect, HNL Connect, which is transportation demand management for, I guess, just introducing people to the options that are out there that they might not know about. And we are pursuing fairly aggressive avenues of advertising and marketing the system. And we've seen, we're trying to engineer a mode shift or a mindset change for our people to realize that Skyline is there. And just as maybe a note of personal, I don't know if it's privilege, but it used to aggravate me when I went on socials and I saw how people's understandable but maybe uninformed opinions about why we did Skyline or the fact that Skyline exists on the social media a lot. A lot of people, even before we opened or after we opened, they were suggesting, oh, let's end it here, let's tear it down. And I'm really happy and gratified to find that the tone on socials is not like that anymore. So I feel like we don't have to defend the system as hard as we do because our riders are doing it for us. And that to me is really gratifying. And not to make light of anything, but when we do have very severe crashes or delays on our roadway network, we've lately been picking up a lot of riders. So we had a very horrific crash on H1 a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. Well, when we did, a lot of people chose to use Skyline for the first time. And that was actually where our ridership for that week bumped up above the 12,000 passenger level. And we wanted to be the first to respond and tell people, hey, you can leave your car at the Skyline Station and get it tomorrow. And I think a lot of people did uptake that. And what was really interesting about that, we got to see people who long time had derided the system, riding it and posting their first ride on it. And I think we kept some of them because the days following and into this week, we still have that level of ridership. So the system, if given a chance with people, and that's why we feel the marketing is very important, will sell itself on its benefits. I think nobody enjoys sitting in the congestion on H1 particularly. And that's why the little nips and tucks and working closely with HART to better integrate our bus system with all of our Skyline stations have really fruited a lot of success. I know Councilmember Okimoto and Councilmember Wire, I'm surprised to see, our Waiava station is fairly remote, but I'm surprised when I go out there and I see people waiting for the 51, which now can service the station so they can get to, Seaview, Crestview, Waipio, Mililani, Wahiawa. It's very gratifying to see that. And I think that's all a part of being able to bring more people into Skyline and letting more people enjoy the system that was built for them. And I think with that, I will close and ask for any questions at this point.
Thank you, Director. We have Committee Vice Chair Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, good morning, Director. Thank you for the update. I really appreciate. I know that you've always been super passionate and you've been willing to answer all of our questions and give us ideas, take our suggestions, and then try to apply it. So I really appreciate it. And it's good to see that the work that you guys have been putting in, along with HART, has been turning into something that's positive for the community. I was wondering if, and you might not have the numbers, I know that you had some numbers before us, but in the ridership information, I wanted to know if you had a breakdown. And essentially what I want to know is, are these new Skyline riders, are they just being taken from the bus riders, or are they separate from the bus riders? I know right now, especially for our part of the community, people can't just, they have to get a car to go on the bus to get into the Skyline and henceforth. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, are we getting people off the roads actually, or are we just shifting bus riders to Skyline to get to downtown? Which is still, I support that, but if you understand what I'm trying to get, are we adjusting the numbers? Are they just moving from one source of transportation to the other? Or are we actually getting more people off of the roads?
That's an analysis that we've been embarking upon. So how we would do that is, since you need a holo card to get into the system, we could do an analysis, and we I think aiming at doing that to see how many people are pure Skyline riders. That would be, someone who rides Skyline who does not have a tap otherwise on any other bus. But that being said, I think the numbers would prove out, and my hypothesis at least is going to be that we have adopted a bunch of new riders who just use Skyline. And I think we see that in our, especially like in our Eva community. That's something I was taking a deeper dive into. In Eva Beach, we gave them the newest Pearl Harbor Express a bunch of years ago, and they overloaded that bus. So it's basically one trip in the morning that goes from all the way in Eva Beach and goes directly to Pearl Harbor. And we used to fill that bus up, and now, for some reason, it's like a third full. And so I think they've migrated to using other modes, including Skyline, but especially the Pearl Harbor crowd. What's super interesting to see is the amount of e-bikes and other devices. I know the fire chief in Pearl Harbor actually rides a skateboard to work every day and connects at the Makalapa station. So even though Skyline got closer to Pearl Harbor with our second segment that they can get off at Makalapa now, a lot of them had adopted to using their e-mobility from the Halawa station. And I think they carried on those habits with them, because we did put in a significant amount of service that connected the Makalapa station to Pearl Harbor, and we did it more frequently and all day. And our uptake on that is not as great as we had hoped. So I think that means that people adopted new habits and kind of stuck to them, regardless of us putting in more bus for them.
I think that's really good to know. And as you guys track, the ridership, that'll be interesting to see Because that will, if we have more people on Skyline or the rail, which is what we want, will that then have the buses be more empty? I know that you guys have worked really hard in getting these routes, especially again for parts of my district, because Manilang doesn't get to, Skyline doesn't get to it. But when we do have the buses then diverting straight to the stations and then they're going into downtown, I would assume that if they could have the choice, they would then get into the rail versus being in the bus. So that would lower those bus routes as well. And I think that's something that I'd like to see the information on as we move forward. Definitely happy with the progress you guys have made. I am grateful that you guys have been mindful of those of us who aren't along the Skyline route. But it would be interesting. I would want to know that as we move forward, if then our buses are more empty, and are we getting more people off the road or not? And, you know, that kind of information would be really helpful. I do want to also concur with Councilmember Wire that mentioned, you know, the park and rides, because, and you've been working on this with me for a while, trying to figure out how those of us in Central Oahu can get more access to the rail. I think until we can do that, I'm not sure. And it sounds like even in West Oahu that, West, where we have the parking right at the school that's full, it sounds like we have to be prepared to address these areas. And I think the parking right for those of us who cannot get along the rail exactly would be really, really helpful. So thank you.
Absolutely thinking like a planner, Councilmember. To that end, what we would like to maybe be able to do as our system evolves, and we've seen parts of this happen already, we've implemented changes like this. One of the beauties of Skyline that I think came upon with first opening, clearly with the 10-minute frequency, when we opened segment 2, we also upped the frequency of all those connecting routes. So frequency in a transit system, how often the buses come on a route, the fact that you can walk out to the bus stop and not need a schedule or not need to wait very long, that really is a huge determining factor. So one of the things we always keep in mind, and this is right along what you're thinking, is we have longer routes that give people a one-seat ride all the way into town, but they don't come very frequently. Sometimes they come every hour, sometimes they come every half an hour. And from a usability and I'd almost call it luxury point of view, if we could half that route and get people to Skyline and run the bus twice as often, that is a way better place to be. And it's proven out in Councilmember Wire's district. In fact, you know, we have circulator routes, our 3-digit routes, they don't go very far. They go from either from a rail station or from a transit center and go up a hill and go back. They just do these little short trips all day. Sometimes they don't go more than 15 minutes from where they started. And those aren't designed to be heavy lifters in our system, but we have 3 notable ones that have turned into heavy lifters for these circulators. One being the Route 444 that services Village Park. And all it does is it goes around the loop, Kupuna Loop in Village Park, goes straight down on the highway to the West Lock Station. That's all it does. It goes back and forth. And it is like a top 3 performer in our circulators. And we don't expect those buses to do much, but these are carrying like 1,000 people a day. And in Councilmember Dos Santos' TAM district, we have a circulator for Chinatown that doesn't connect to a rail station, but does connect to A line and W line. And that's been kind of topping out in the thousands also. So when we see these kinds of pockets of like ridership that boom, we know that the route is servicing their needs, is definitely connecting them to where they need to go. And for example, we had a Palolo shuttle that just used to do Palolo. And what we did was we extended it to KCC and Waikiki. And that thing is now, it beats a lot of long local routes in terms of ridership. That thing is carrying about 1,200 people a day. So those circulators, if we give it a reasonable frequency, if it comes often enough, you don't have to worry about a schedule, and it connects to either Skyline or to the rapid buses that touch Skyline, we found that that's kind of the secret sauce. So I really like where you're going with this and looking at how we can economize redundancies. And I know, and just make a better system for everybody.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate all that you guys have been doing and continue to do, and I support you in your efforts and continue with your high energy. We appreciate it and we need it. So mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Okimoto. Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And really appreciate the discussion. Super exciting, and appreciate your willingness, the department's willingness to engage. I know we'll be talking about some of the other access discussion that's come up over the past couple of committees. And so I just wanted to kind of find out more about, so like at the airport, is that a golf cart that runs shuttles people? Is that DTS or is that DOT?
It's DOT. So I do have to commend Ed Sniffen and his team, Deputy Director Kurt Otaguro, and their administrator, Malcolm Smith, for working with us as a city. And we had a high-intensity, high-frequency bunch of meetings before we opened second segment. And everybody's been so flexible that it hasn't at all through this whole process been an us and them scenario. It's not your airport and our rail station. It's how do we handle everybody that's using the facility. So you point out we have the golf carts that run people who maybe don't or unable to or don't want to walk from the concourse level of the station. They also have restructured their Wiki bus to pick up right outside the station too. So that's available to people also. And you know, we have been working with DOT to integrate some of those services so that we might even be able to see them on our transit app. And so those kinds of little innovations really make it helpful for people. We have been working with them on better signage, so we're going to partner with them to make sure that it's very clear on how to get to and from the Skyline station and to the W line. Of note, HART will commence construction on an enhanced bus stop right fronting the Lelepaua Airport station, and therefore the bus will be closer to the station and closer to all the holo vending machines and all those other resources there.
Nice, yeah, because I mean, it's a manageable walk, coming back to the golf cart from the station, Hawaiian Terminal. Is it like 10 minutes, maybe, give or take? I don't want to overstate it. You're walking across the parking lot. I've walked it whenever I've done it. But it just comes to mind because I was just so amazed. I mean, the past 3 times I've gone to the airport, I've used Skyline. Because there's more predictability getting to the station or in the neighborhood, and then you don't have to worry about the traffic going in. And then, yeah, the golf cart was there picking up people, taking them, and so it was just super amazing to see just the impact. And I know that's just one part of it, but just wanted to share my experience. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember DeSantis, do you have anything?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. One of the concerns that I get from my constituents, especially when the 20 was changed to the W and when the 7 and 9 were combined and all of that, is the effect on ridership. So I wanted to ask if you could kind of paint us a picture of how the W line is doing, and if you have information about how it compares to how the 20 was doing when it took an hour and 16 minutes to get from the airport to Waikiki.
Yeah, so the W line, like I said, picking up 1,000 more riders on a monthly basis is kind of unheard of in the scheme of those who operate transit, and that's kind of what happened with here with our W line. I mean, I do say I was a little concerned when we started off our first month, but I always first month jitters, right? We were doing about 3,000 riders and then 4,000 riders, and then now we're at about 5,500. So it is picking up quite significantly. That being said, it does not make a lot of stops. We reduced it from 55 stops to about 15. And so therefore, you would expect that we aren't going to pick up as many people. So I would classify that, Councilmember, as we're closing the gap between the former Route 20 ridership and the current W line ridership. I think we have about 1,500 passengers that make up that delta. We used to carry about 7,000 on the Route 20, and we're at about 5,500 on the W line. I do think that can pick up more. I am worried about the popularity of the W line, and we are looking at adjusting the service levels to actually do a little bit more. And again, the benefit of us working very closely with the airports, we are now looking at the wholesale day-by-day arrivals. And what we found out is, from Asia and Oceania, that's Australia and New Zealand, between 8 a.m. and 10:30 p.m., there are about 12 flights that come in. And these are very transit-oriented type travelers. So we may have to extend out what we consider our peak and do a little bit more service during those peaks and smooth it out over the day such that we know that westbound flights from the continent start coming in maybe at about 10 and peak at about like 2 or 3 p.m. So we want to maybe adjust and tailor our schedules to meet that demand, because there are some trips on the W line that are really heavily loaded. We saw that in our, especially marathon week. The W line got slaughtered during the marathon week. So even things like that seasonally, we might look at the possibility of throwing out extra service when we know that there's more flights coming in, because one plane means an overloaded bus, fundamentally, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I will reiterate that, having rode the W line yesterday from Sand Island back into town, there were a bunch of Australians on there, which was neat to see and hear their accent. Yeah. I did want to ask if any of the routes have seen reduced ridership. Is there any cause for concern, anything you want to flag for us that comes to mind?
I think, let's see, how would I answer that? I don't necessarily think we've seen reduced ridership except in our peak hour expresses. Some people have traded the one-seat ride to and from downtown and their neighborhood for maybe a 3-piece Skyline trip. And I think it's just because of that certainty you get traversing the worst part of the commute on the H1 freeway. To that point, those are the ones that we'd really like to look at. And if there is redundancy, this is a great time to look at, not the metric of maybe just ridership, but we have a metric that we use called passengers per service hour. So for the amount of time that we deploy the buses, we want to see what the productivity of those hours are in comparison to the rest of the system. And one of the things that Honolulu is very well known for is being off the charts sometimes in terms of utilization. Just whether it's our per capita utilization on a large scale or our route by route passengers per service hour being very high. It's a good time for us to look at the system and look at where we have all the redundancies, like Councilmember Okimoto was talking about, and maybe start to economize this, like start to give people more options to connect to Skyline if that's what they're doing.
Great. And then, I don't know if you want to talk about the overnight airport thing yet.
We could do that. We do have that plan. So a lot of transit agencies chase this holy grail of providing services to airports 24 hours a day. And we are going to get there, I believe, either in March or in June. I have to verify when that is. Because of our close recent relationship with HDOT airports, we did find that there's a whole bunch of, the airport is a beast in terms of being an employer. They have people that start shifts all the time, and their shifts have, especially for the federal jobs, have changed a lot recently. And so for those that rely on transit to get there, I think we can become a little bit more reliable. We have buses that traverse Nimitz Highway right outside of the airport, one of them being that 24 hours a day Route 40. And what we're gonna do is take those three routes that do that. That would be the routes 40, 42, and 51, which go to Makaha, Eva Beach, and Central Oahu, respectively, and spin them into the airport after the W line and Skyline stop operating. So therefore, everybody in those three fingers, whether it's talking Eva or the Waianae Coast or Central Oahu, will have a bus that goes through the airport, almost 24 hours a day here.
That's exciting. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeSantis Tam. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Chair. Just real brief comments. I appreciate the discussion thus far. I just want to congratulate John. I think this is a perfect fit for you. As you can tell with the way that you're discussing it and all of these ideas, this is perfect. I really look forward to working with you on it. I have a lot to say, but I think I'll just say it offline and we can work well together on whatever you need, because I just want to see you succeed. And I think you have the insight that we need to make this portion of the rail and, of course, transit work the best for the city that it can. And of course, welcome to our new deputy. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I would also like to welcome who just came in maybe about 7 minutes ago. We have the director for DTS here as well, Roger Martin. I do have a question relating to the last slide, John. Would you be able to explain the bus, on the questions page, would you be able to explain the picture here?
Excuse me, the picture. When I said we got smashed in the marathon week, this is a picture I took when I came back from Japan. And that was notably, I came back on a Delta flight, but there was a United flight, a JAL flight, and a Hawaiian flight that landed all within an hour of each other. And so this is what the W line that I took to get home looked like. And it's fine to take 80 people on a 60-foot-long bus, but 80 people plus their 2 suitcases is a lot to deal with. And so we would like to take some of that knowledge, and we've already thought we reconfigured these buses to allow for more luggage and more storage and more convenient passage. We have wider aisles, a little bit less seats, but we're gonna have to start looking at other things such as racks and other hard things to really make the W line sing. I mean, I think the luggage ends up taking more space than the people do. But everybody's been really pretty good about it.
Well, that's good to hear. And may I ask for a refresher on and for the public, what the luggage policy is for?
We will be updating officially the luggage policy, but and specifically codifying that in ordinance. But right now, we will accept a reasonably sized suitcase for travel. And we understand we can't just do it on lines to go to the airport anymore because people do transfer. And we do have, the ability to get to Skyline on, say, a Route 2 and then take Skyline there. So we will be more officializing that, but everyone is allowed to take a suitcase and a personal bag, just like, what you would take on a plane.
Thank you. Next, first off, I take the W line. I live in Salt Lake, so I can either go from there to Halava Station, but I used to dread going into Waikiki. I think I talk about it the most with Councilmember Okimoto about going into Waikiki, but if I take the W, and I don't have to worry if I'm having fun and just coming back home. So love the W line. Maybe I shouldn't share that publicly.
I did have someone who shared with me, we should have called it the B line.
Oh.
B being for best.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, maybe in the future. I do have a question, as I note, in addition to Councilmember Dos Santos Tam's note of the routes that will then go to the overnight routes to the airport, that there are different route updates for Line A, U-Line, the Makalapa Naval Shipyard. So I know that you're constantly reviewing the changes for routes, whether it be frequency or duration of operation. And so what is that like, and is it dictated by the ridership?
Yes, and we do rely a lot upon our, all of your constituents touching in with us and asking for things. Sometimes it's a matter of the last bus leaves at 10:30, I get off at 10:30, I need a little bit of extra time. And when we can accommodate those service spans increases, then we generally do. I think it's very important for us. I would like us to touch back with everybody who offers a route suggestion. When we actually implement it, I think it's important for us to follow back with them and let them know, because there's really nothing more gratifying than taking a suggestion and saying that we've done it. We took your suggestion, and I think that feedback loop really inspires some confidence in government and for our people. But I also think there's no better feeling than somebody requesting something and us being able to say, well, we already thought of that and you're getting it. And so, again, feedback, don't let something go unsaid just because you didn't ask. And we've already found that at the airport. That's why I kind of made note of the changing airport shifts that happen. A lot of people have asked us, and again, this is a far cry from tear it down, but how come you guys can't run Skyline 24 hours a day?
Thank you. Members, any other questions before we go to testimony? I'll go to testimony, and then we can come back to discussion. Are we okay with the?
No.
Okay. All right. Members, we don't have any registered remote testifiers, but I see Donald Sakamoto's hand up. Donald, I'll give you a minute to unmute.
Oh, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
It's difficulty, but thank you. Donald Sakamo, for the record, is a longtime rider for 26 years of public transportation, bus and handy van, and now Skyline we're using. I just want to make more emphasis on the accessibility for people with disabilities, especially the blind. At the Citizens for a Fair AD Right meeting on November 20th, we had a blind individual that had a hard time who works at the airport, blind vendor, getting access. But now that John Nucci has explained this shuttle and whatnot, it's kudos for him and Department of Transportation, DOT, for doing that. But I think there should be more emphasis where a survey is done, like how they do with the paratransit. We have a survey we do every time, and we give input of the service, how quality it is. It would be wonderful if Skyline has that. And also to make sure that the director, both deputy director and John Nucci, director of Bus Handy Van, Skyline, Vicky, work with the disabled agencies like Committee for Accessible Transportation. I'm the chair for DTS, and we have people with disabilities like myself, and agencies can give input to John, the director, Roger Morton, deputy director. Also, Citizens for a Fair AD Right. I'm also on the Statewide Independent Living Council board. We do independence for all disabilities. So we'd like to work with both John and Deputy Director, and especially Roger Morton, how we can all come together for the disabled community. And one last thing is, today is February 4th, and it's called Transit Equity Day. And this is in response to Rosa Parks, Montgomery, Alabama, back in the 50s, who was discriminated because of the way they did the black people would have to go sit in the back of the bus. But today is the Transit Equity Day, and I'd like to thank John Nucci and Mayor Belangiati for doing it last year, and hopefully we can do it in the future for free public rides for the citizens of our wonderful city of Honolulu for that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald, and thank you for bringing up Transit Equity Day. I got to repost my post about that. So thank you. Okay, is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Anyone else online? Okay, seeing none, we don't have any registered remote, any registered in-person testimony, but is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none. Okay, members, we are back in discussion. Any other questions for the Director of Transit? So do you have any last comments, anything you would like to add before we end the presentation?
Nothing except I really have always enjoyed working with this very transit-forward, transit-thinking council, and look forward to that relationship in the future, that we will let you know far in advance of plans that we are making, so that we can work through the whole process together. And we want to be better. There's always room for improvement in our public engagement, and the council is definitely our best conduit to the constituents that you guys know and communicate with every day.
Awesome, thank you. And I know that Oahu MPO was mentioned earlier, so I do want to thank the members here in the committee. With me, we have both Councilmember Dos Santos Tam and Councilmember Okimoto here. The policy board is back at the city level, so congratulations to my committee vice chair for being chair of the policy board. And we look forward to working on not just what we're discussing here, but especially what Councilmember Wire was discussing earlier with, who was he talking to? Was it you? No, it wasn't you. It was somebody else. But yeah, okay. But yeah, talking with Deputy Director O'Keefe earlier. So thank you. With that, there being no further business at 10:31, this meeting is adjourned.